The collision happened on a Tuesday, when an 11-year-old boy named Diego Reyes held a pharmacy receipt stamped "denied" in one hand and watched Serena Klein step out of a black car across the street, her security already scanning the sidewalk as if poverty itself were a threat. Diego stood very still under the clinic awning, rain misting the edge of his windbreaker. Not because he was afraid, but because stillness costs nothing. He had learned that early. Stillness, silence, patience, those were free. The receipt was thin paper, already soft at the creases from being folded and unfolded, pressed flat again with his thumb as if friction could erase the word. Denied. It was the kind of stamp that looked official, the kind that didn't have to shout. Across the street, camera lights flared. Someone called Serena Klein's name. Serena lifted one hand in a practiced wave, chin angled just so, her expression controlled in the way money expected, calm, competent, inevitable. A gust of wind shoved a sheet of rain sideways. Diego's jacket gaped for a second, and the receipt flashed white in his hand like a small flag. Serena's gaze cut past the cameras, just a half glance. Automatic, scanning for movement, for threats, for anything unscripted. Her eyes snagged on the boy under the awning, too thin for his jacket, holding paper with a bold red stamp. Her smile didn't change, but something in her brow tightened, a micro-flinch of recognition she buried before it could become curiosity. The security guard nearest her followed her gaze, then shifted his stance, already dismissing the child as harmless. Diego saw the glance. He saw the way Serena's eyes touched him, and slid away. It wasn't pity. It wasn't kindness. It was the same look adults gave broken things they didn't want to deal with. Behind Diego, the pharmacy tech had kept her voice kind while saying the same words adults always used when a system was hurting you. Your plan denied it. You can call them. Or your doctor can. Diego had nodded like he was older than 11, and could carry the sentence without dropping it. He had taken the paper, because paper was proof. Then he had walked outside and found himself under the same awning where Serena Klein's name glowed on the building's glass. He folded the receipt along the old creases and slid it into the inside pocket of his jacket, careful not to tear it. The jacket had been his guardian's once. It swallowed him at the shoulders and hung too long at the sleeves, but it was warm and had pockets that closed. A text buzzed on his cheap prepaid phone with the cracked corner of screen. From Marisol. How long? Don't push. Eat something. Diego swallowed. Not hungry. He typed back with steady thumbs. On my way. I'm fine. He turned away from the clinic and walked home. His shoes rubbed the back of his heels with every step. He'd been pretending they didn't. Halfway home, he stopped behind a bus shelter, sat on the cold metal bench, and peeled his sock down just enough to check. The skin was raw, a blister broken, and sticky with blood. He stared at it without drama, then pulled the sock back up carefully, pressing his heel against the shoe's torn lining to cushion it. He stood and kept walking. A blister was small compared to a denial stamp. Home was a second-floor apartment over a laundromat that never fully lost the smell of detergent and damp clothes. The stairwell light flickered. Diego climbed quietly because Marisol's headaches got worse with sudden noise. He let himself in and set his backpack on the chair. The apartment was small but organized, every object disciplined into a place. Marisol's discipline matched his. Even when she was sick, she kept things controlled, dishes washed, counters wiped, the little pile of mail kept in a tray by the door, as if order could keep chaos from getting ideas. Marisol lay on the couch with a folded blanket over her legs. Her hair was braided and pulled to one side. Her cheeks looked thinner than last week. Her eyes opened when Diego came in, and she tried to smile like she wasn't measuring his expression. Diego kept his face neutral. He had learned that too. If he looked too worried, Marisol would spend what little energy she had trying to comfort him. How long was the pharmacy? She asked, voice careful. Not bad, Diego said, and the lie landed lightly because the truth would land heavy. He crossed the room and sat on the edge of the coffee table, close enough to pass something without making her reach. He pulled the receipt from his pocket and held it out. Marisol's eyes moved over the paper. Her breath caught just once. Then she let it out slowly, controlled. Diego watched her hands. They curled into fists under the blanket, and then relaxed. "It says," Marisol began. "I know what it says," Diego said. Not harsh, just firm. He hated the stamp. He hated how a stamp could decide whether Marisol's body got help. Marisol's gaze lifted to him. "Diego," she said softly, "it's not your job to." "I'm not fixing," he said quickly. "I'm checking." Marisol's forehead creased. "Checking what?" Diego pointed at the line under the stamp. "Doctor review completed." Marisol's mouth tightened. "Sometimes they have their own doctors," she said. "They look at the chart. They decide if it's necessary." Diego nodded like he accepted the explanation, then asked the question that didn't let the explanation rest. "When?" "In the time it took me to walk from the counter to the door." Marisol's eyes flicked away for half a second, the way eyes did when they were tired of fighting something bigger than them. She shifted on the couch, wincing, pressing her palm to her left side under the blanket. "My kidneys are acting up again," she murmured, more to herself than to him. Then she straightened like she hadn't said it. Diego noticed anyway. He noticed everything. Marisol's condition had a name, one the county doctor said carefully, with empathy and caution. Lupus. Systemic lupus. Autoimmune. Unpredictable. It made her joints burn some days, and her skin ache like bruises. It made her lungs feel tight when she caught a cold, and when it flared hard enough, it inflamed her kidneys until her side pain turned sharp and her blood pressure climbed and her urine turned the wrong color. Lupus meant the body fought itself. The medication denied today wasn't exotic. It was a maintenance drug meant to keep the flares from taking over, to protect her kidneys so they didn't slide, to ward failure. Dr. Patel had explained it plainly. Fewer flares, fewer ERA visits, less damage that couldn't be undone. Kleincare had stamped denied anyway. Diego looked toward the small desk in the corner, the one where Marisol used to do her online work. The laptop on it was old, but functional. He had cleaned it last week carefully with a cloth. He knew where Marisol kept her passwords, written in code on a sticky note under the keyboard. He didn't like crossing lines. He respected boundaries because Marisol had given him some when he had nothing else. But this was breath, and blood, and pain. "I'm going to look in the portal," Diego said. Marisol's eyes sharpened. "Diego, I'm not calling," he said. "I'm not yelling. I'm looking." Marisol stared at him for a moment that felt like a test. Then, with visible reluctance, she gave a small nod. "Be careful," she said. "Don't message anyone from my account. Just look." Diego nodded once. "Just look," he repeated. He went to the desk and opened the laptop. The fan whirred like a tired animal. The screen glowed. He touched the inside pocket of his jacket first, a reflex, feeling the folded receipt there against his ribs, as if it could steady his hands. Then he typed. While Diego typed the login code with careful, fast fingers, a different set of hands tapped a different screen across town. Serena Klein sat at the head of a conference table and looked at a dashboard that told her what she wanted to hear. She wasn't looking at faces. She was looking at columns, approvals, denials, appeals, overturn rate. A clean, simplified world where suffering didn't show up unless it became a liability. "Denials are holding steady," Malcolm Trent, the CFO, said. Serena's posture remained straight, her hands folded neatly, her expression neutral. "Appeals?" she asked. "Up slightly," compliance said, "but overturns remain within acceptable range." Serena nodded once. "Good." PR added. "Some online noise about denials. Nothing major." Serena's eyes didn't move. "We don't run a healthcare company based on noise," she said. "We run it based on sustainability." A board member asked, "Any utilization management risk? Whistleblower risk?" Serena didn't blink. "Our processes are compliant," she said. The meeting moved on, and Serena moved with it, writing the comfort of her own language. Back in the apartment, Diego's portal dashboard loaded. He clicked Claim History and waited. The denied medication appeared with today's date. Diego opened it. Decision, denied. Reason, step therapy required. Medical necessity criteria not met. Then the line that made Diego's stomach tighten. Medical review completed. Dr. A. Harker. Diego stared. Marisol's voice from the couch was thin. Who's that? Diego clicked the name. Nothing happened. No link. Just text. He searched the portal. Nothing. He copied the name into a search engine. The laptop lagged, then produced scattered results. Doctors in other states. Unrelated references. Nothing that looked like a ClineCare reviewer tied to their plan. Diego's chest tightened. That doesn't make sense, he said out loud. Marisol shifted on the couch, wincing. Sometimes they contract out, she said, but her voice didn't sound convinced. Diego clicked on another denial from last month, an inhaler refilled during a flare. Medical review completed. Dr. A. Harker. He clicked another test strips that had been denied and later reversed. Medical review completed. Dr. A. Harker. He scrolled further back. Another denial. Same name. Another same name. Diego felt something harden into shape inside his ribs. Not panic. Not despair. Something more useful. A pattern. Then, he noticed the stamps. The medical review was completed sometimes 1 minute after the claim was submitted. Sometimes 2. Diego sat back slowly. That's not a review, he whispered. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled the receipt out, and unfolded it again, smoothing the paper flat on the desk beside the laptop. The red stamp looked louder under the cheap desk lamp. He stared at it like it could answer him back. Marisol's voice came softer. Diego, don't do this alone, she said. Diego didn't look away from the paper. I'm not alone, he said quietly. You're here. That night, he didn't stay up late for fun. He stayed up late because the world got quieter, and quiet meant fewer interruptions. He copied denial details into his school notebook, writing neatly because neatness made adults listen. Date, item, denial, reason, reviewer name, review time, submission time. He found a section on each denial labeled clinical rationale. The paragraphs were the same, word for word, switching only the medication name like a template. He copied one rationale line into a search engine and found it inside a publicly posted policy PDF. He wrote that down too. Marisol coughed softly in her sleep. Diego's head snapped toward her. He listened until her breathing steadied again. Then he went back to the screen, eyes sharper, purpose steadier, and he folded the receipt again and slipped it back into his inside pocket like he was putting away a weapon he wasn't allowed to carry openly. In the morning, he went to school anyway. He sat in his chair with his heel throbbing under his sock. He focused on the teacher's voice like it was a rope and he was holding on. When the class did a quick quiz, Diego's pencil hovered over a question he normally would have answered in seconds. His brain felt thick, like it was wading through water. The bell rang for lunch. Diego opened his lunch bag and stared at the rice and beans Marisol had packed the night before, her hands shaking but stubborn. He took 2 bites, then closed the bag again because nausea rose in his throat for no reason except worry. He didn't throw it away. Food was not trash. He saved it for later and pretended he was just not hungry. After school, he went to work. Mr. Hahn's corner store smelled like citrus cleaner and old cardboard. Diego swept the floor with efficient, quiet strokes. Mr. Hahn watched him a moment, then asked, "Your aunt okay?" Diego kept sweeping. "She's tired." Mr. Hahn grunted. "Insurance?" Diego paused. Broom bristles pressed to the floor. "Yes." Mr. Hahn reached under the counter and pulled out a worn folder. He flipped through and extracted a letter with ClineCare's logo. The bottom was stamped, denied. Above it, medical review completed, Dr. A. Harker. Mr. Hahn slid it toward Diego, without ceremony. "Same," he said. Diego's throat tightened. He didn't grab it. He didn't take ownership of someone else's proof. "Can I take a picture?" he asked, looking Mr. Hahn in the eye. Mr. Hahn hesitated. "You make trouble?" Diego's voice stayed calm. "No originals, ever," he said. "I don't take your papers. I just need proof it's not only us." Mr. Hahn stared at him, then nodded once. "Okay," he said. "Picture only." Diego photographed it on the counter, clear and flat, and slid it right back. "Thank you," he said. On the walk home, his blisters stung again. He kept walking anyway, the receipt folded in his pocket like a small, stubborn weight. 2 days later, after they filed their appeal and printed it downstairs, a portal message arrived. Diego saw the notification first. Appeal decision. He clicked. Appeal denied. Medical review confirmed. Necessity criteria not met. Review completed by Dr. A. Harker. A PDF attachment opened. It looked official. Kleincare logo. Patient name. Medication. Denial. Reason. And at the bottom, reviewed by a Harker MD, with a cursive signature that looked too perfect to be real. Diego's eyes fixed on it. The signature didn't wobble. It didn't press through the page. It looked like a font pretending to be a person. He didn't guess. He checked. He clicked the top menu, the way Ms. Lang had taught the class when they learned to submit essays as PDFs file, then properties. A small box popped up with document information. Author, AutoGen-UM. Diego's heart thudded. Automated utilization management. Not a doctor, not a person, a system. Then he saw the line that made the lie heavier. Prescribing physician consulted. Dr. Patel agreed. Alternative therapy appropriate. Diego stared, breath held. Dr. Patel had not been consulted. Diego was sure. He printed the PDF downstairs and placed it in front of Marisol. Marisol read it slowly, eyes moving over the false claim about Dr. Patel. This is fraud, Marisol whispered. The word heavy, not dramatic, accurate. Diego's voice stayed calm. Then we treated like that, he said. Marisol's eyes glistened, not with weakness, but with anger. We can't afford a lawyer, she said. Diego nodded. We don't buy a lawyer, he said. We find one who already fights this. He did not pretend he could fight a corporation alone. He did not pretend an 11-year-old could run an investigation safely. The next afternoon, Diego went to the public library and used a computer. He searched for legal aid clinics that handled insurance denials and for investigative reporters who wrote like they expected pushback. He wrote names in his notebook with the same care he used on math homework. He chose an investigative reporter whose work showed patience with detail. Nina Park. Diego created a neutral email address. He wrote, without begging, without drama, without exaggeration. He described the repeated reviewer name, the 1-minute reviews, the false claim about physician consultation, the AutoGen-UM properties. He asked to meet in a public place. No attachments, no address. He hit send. Nina replied, meet tomorrow 4 p.m. at the library. Bring copies. Do not bring originals you can't replace. Diego showed Marisol. Marisol's face tightened. No cameras, she said immediately. No cameras, Diego agreed. And you come. The next day, Diego sat at a table near the reference desk where he could see the doors. When Nina Park walked in, scanning the room, Diego stood. Nina approached and sat with space between them like respect. Diego slid copies across the table. Nina read, eyes moving fast. Her jaw tightened when she saw AutoGen-UM. This is significant, Nina said. Diego watched her carefully. I'm not trying to be viral, he said. I'm trying to make them stop. Nina nodded. Good, she said. Because stopping them means proof, not pity. She asked questions. Diego answered with facts. When she asked for their address, Diego shook his head. No, he said simply. Nina nodded immediately. Fair, she said. We can meet here. She studied him for a beat. One more thing, she said. You keep boundaries. You don't chase insiders. You don't hold anyone's documents. You don't become the hub. You hand me what you can safely hand me, and then you step back. Understood. Diego nodded. Understood, he said, and meant it. Marisol sat beside him, hands folded tight on her cane, watching Nina like someone watching a door crack open, and trying not to imagine what could slip through. Nina's eyes shifted to Marisol. Your condition? Nina asked gently. Just enough detail for context. Marisol's jaw tightened. Lupus, she said. Kidney involvement. When I flare, I can't work. When I can't work, we fall behind. When we fall behind, everything gets dangerous. Nina nodded and didn't pry further. Diego reached into his jacket and pulled the receipt from the inside pocket, unfolded it carefully, and placed it flat on the table between them. The red stamp looked louder in the library's fluorescent light. Nina stared at it a moment. "This," she said quietly, "is a physical anchor. Keep it." Diego's hand hovered over the paper. "I am keeping it," he said. Nina looked at him. "Good," she said. "Because if they try to make this abstract, you bring them back to paper." As they left, Nina called after them softly, "Diego, if anyone from Kleincare contacts you, you do not meet alone. You do not respond without telling me, or legal aid. You are not their redemption prop. You're a kid." Diego nodded once. "Okay," he said. Outside, under the gray sky, Diego tucked the receipt back into his inside pocket. The paper made a small whispering sound as it folded, like it was agreeing to stay close. 3 days passed without a miracle. Marisol's pain flared and eased in cycles that didn't care about news or reporters. Some mornings she could sit up and braid her hair. Some mornings she couldn't get out of bed without biting down on a groan. Diego learned the rhythm of her body the way he learned school schedules. What helped, what didn't, what could wait, what couldn't. On Friday night, Marisol stood at the sink, and her hands shook so badly, a glass slipped and cracked in the basin. The sound was small, but it sliced through the apartment. Marisol froze, staring at the broken glass like it was a personal failure. Diego moved immediately. "Don't," he said gently, stepping between her and the sink. He didn't touch her without asking. He just blocked. Marisol's breath came short. "I'm fine," she whispered, but her voice said she wasn't. Diego grabbed a towel, wrapped the broken pieces carefully, and set them in a bag. He washed the sink with slow, controlled movements, not because he liked cleaning, but because cleaning was a way to keep fear from spreading. Marisol sank into a chair at the table, one hand pressed to her side. "Kidneys?" Diego asked. Marisol nodded, eyes closed, jaw clenched. Diego pulled the blood pressure cuff from the drawer. He wrapped it around her arm and pumped slowly. The numbers climbed higher than he liked. He didn't show it. Marisol watched his face like the numbers were written there. "How bad?" she whispered. Diego exhaled through his nose. "Hi," he said. "Not emergency, but we watch. We call Dr. Patel if it stays." Marisol swallowed, shame and fear mixing. "I hate this," she whispered. Diego's voice stayed quiet. "I know," he said. "But you're here." He went to the desk, took the receipt out, and laid it flat beside the laptop like a reminder that none of this was because Marisol had failed. The stamp sat there while Diego typed another message into the portal, requesting an expedited review for the medication and lab work again, attaching the same documentation, because the machine counted on exhaustion. On Monday morning, Nina Park sat in her cramped newsroom office, with Diego's documents spread across her desk like a puzzle. She didn't call them for updates. She didn't ask Diego to do anything risky. She did what she had promised. She worked. She requested comment from Kleincare's PR office, and received a paragraph, so smooth it sounded like it had been generated by the same software that denied Marisol. "We take patient health seriously. Our utilization management processes follow clinical guidelines and regulatory requirements. We encourage members to pursue the appeals process." Nina printed the statement and circled the phrase, "encourage." Members then wrote in the margin, "Encourage how?" with lies. She called Dr. Patel at the county clinic and asked, "Were you consulted as the denial letter claims?" Dr. Patel's voice snapped tight with anger. "No," she said. "And they've done that before. They put words in my mouth to intimidate patients." Nina asked, "Can you say that on record?" Dr. Patel hesitated, then exhaled. "Yes," she said. "I'm tired." Nina wrote down tired and underlined it twice. That afternoon, Serena Klein received Nina's request for comment. Serena read the email in her glass office with the city beneath her and felt irritation rise. Not at Nina, but at the risk. Her assistant hovered in the doorway, cautious. "This is the reporter," the assistant said. "She's asking about AutoGen-UM, the doctor review language, and whether prescribing physicians are actually consulted." Serena's jaw tightened. Send it to legal, she said automatically. The assistant hesitated. Legal says to respond with the standard statement. Serena looked up sharply. Legal says to lie, she corrected. The assistant flinched. They say to avoid admissions, he whispered. Serena exhaled slowly. Get me Malcolm, she said. Malcolm Trent arrived with his smooth posture and calm face, like a man who believed problems could be talked into smaller shapes. Serena, he said, we need to stay disciplined. Regulators, press, investors. Serena cut him off. Do we consult prescribing physicians, as our denial letters claim? She asked. Malcolm's smile didn't reach his eyes. Not literally, he said. It's language. It signals clinical guideline alignment. It signals a conversation that didn't happen, Serena said. Malcolm shrugged lightly. It discourages frivolous appeals, he said. It protects us from Serena's eyes narrowed. From accountability, she said. Malcolm's tone sharpened a fraction. From chaos, he insisted. We serve millions. If we approve everything, premiums spike. Employers leave. The whole system collapses. Sustainability matters. Sustainability. The word landed like a familiar tool. Serena had used it so often, it had become her shield. Is automation stamping doctor review completed when no doctor reviewed the case? Serena asked. Malcolm hesitated half a beat. The policies are physician approved, he said. Dr. Harker oversees. That's not what it says to patients, Serena said. Malcolm leaned forward, voice low. We can't say a machine denied you, he said. That would be catastrophic. Serena stared at him. So we're pretending a doctor did it, she said. Quiet and lethal. Malcolm's jaw tightened. We are using standard industry language, he insisted. Serena's gaze hardened. Standard doesn't mean acceptable, she said. Malcolm exhaled. This is noise, he said, and the word sounded like an insult in his mouth. A reporter, with a kid's screenshots and some metadata. Serena's eyes flashed. It's not noise, she said. It's a child with a denial receipt. Malcolm paused, then softened his tone, as if Serena were emotional, as if that was the problem. Serena, he said, don't personalize this. Serena felt something twist behind her ribs. Elena's hospital room flickered in her mind like a light trying to turn on. It is personal, Serena said quietly. For them? Malcolm's face hardened again. Our job is to protect the company, he said. Serena's voice went colder. Our job is to provide healthcare coverage, she said. Not to game human lives into a savings target. Malcolm's eyes narrowed, and Serena saw the conflict clearly. He wasn't just defending policy. He was defending a worldview where suffering was acceptable if it wasn't visible. Serena dismissed him with a small, sharp wave. Leave, she said. When he left, Serena sat alone and opened the denial PDF that had been flagged. Marisol Reyes. She clicked File, then Properties. Author, AutoGen-UM. Serena's throat tightened. It was such a small line for so much harm. She opened another denial, another 1-minute review time. The doctor name repeated like a stamp. Her phone buzzed with a calendar reminder she usually dismissed. Alina Memorial Fund call. Serena stared at the reminder and didn't dismiss it. She let it sit there, blinking, like the past refusing to be silent. That night, Diego slept with his jacket hanging on the chair near his bed, the receipt inside pocket like it needed guarding. He woke once to the sound of Marisol coughing, and sat up immediately, listening, heart tight, until her breathing steadied. In the morning, another portal message appeared. Not the medication this time, lab work. Dr. Patel had ordered kidney function labs because Marisol's pain and blood pressure suggested trouble. The denial came fast. Decision, denied. Reason, not medically necessary. Medical review completed. Dr. A. Harker. Diego stared at the screen until his eyes stung. He took the receipt out of his pocket and unfolded it, smoothing the paper flat, as if flattening it could flatten the world. Marisol watched him from the couch, her face pale. Diego, she whispered, don't burn yourself out. Diego's voice stayed steady. I'm not burning, he said. I'm counting. He printed the denial and put it in the folder with the others. He wrote the timestamp down. He circled review, completed, and wrote next to it, 1 minute. He closed the laptop, then opened it again, and clicked the denial PDF. He clicked File, then Properties, Author AutoGen-UM. He wrote it down again. Evidence wasn't a one-time thing. It was repetition until no one could claim it was an accident. That afternoon, Nina Park met Diego and Marisol again at the library, because the library was safe and public and neutral. Diego didn't bring originals. He brought copies. Marisol moved slowly, cane tapping lightly, breath shallow. Diego walked beside her, close enough to catch her if she stumbled, but not touching unless she reached. They sat at the same table near the reference desk. Diego unfolded the receipt and placed it between them like an anchor. Nina's eyes flicked to it. More denials, she asked. Diego slid the lab denial copy forward. Nina read it, and her jaw tightened. They're denying monitoring, she murmured. That's dangerous. Marisol's voice was quiet, angry. They want people to get worse before they approve, she said. Nina nodded slowly. Or they assume people will give up, she said. Diego's eyes stayed on Nina. What happens next? He asked. Nina didn't sugarcoat. Next is pressure, she said. I need additional cases, and someone inside who understands their process. But not through you. Through legal and through safe channels. Marisol's hand tightened on her cane. If someone inside talks, they'll lose their job, she said. Nina's expression hardened. That's why I'm working with a legal aid attorney, she said. Carla Mendez. She's careful. She does whistleblower protection and patient advocacy. If an insider comes forward, Carla handles it, not Diego. Diego nodded. Good, he said. Nina glanced at him. You're already doing too much, she said. Diego didn't argue. He just folded the receipt once, then unfolded it again, the motion steadying him. The next day, Nina's first story published. It didn't lead with tragedy porn, it led with proof. 1-minute doctor reviews, automated denials, labeled as doctor reviews, false claim of prescribing physician consultation, repeated reviewer name used across multiple denials, a child's documentation, a physician's confirmation, a patient's worsening condition. ClientCare responded with its standard statement. The story spread anyway. Not like a wildfire that burns out in a day, like a slow fire that gets into the walls. People shared their own denial receipts. Nurses shared stories. Doctors posted threads about peer-to-peer reviews that never happened. Advocates tagged regulators. Diego didn't read comments. He didn't scroll. He didn't let it become entertainment. He focused on Marisol. A courier arrived with a letter from ClientCare offering temporary courtesy coverage for Marisol's medication for 30 days. Marisol stared at it. Courtesy, she whispered, bitter. Diego read it and felt cold anger. 30 days was not stability. It was a leash, exactly long enough to quiet the news cycle. Marisol's fingers trembled. Take it, she whispered. Just take it. I need to function. Diego's jaw tightened. He hated accepting anything that felt like a handout. But this wasn't charity. This was them returning what they had withheld. He nodded once. We take the medication, he said. We don't take their silence. Marisol exhaled shakily. The medication arrived later that day. Marisol held the bottle like it was both precious and insulting. She took the first pill with a sip of water, her hand trembling, her eyes closed like she didn't want to hope. Diego watched her swallow and felt relief and fury braided together. He touched the receipt in his pocket, as if reminding himself, 30 days was not a fix. It was a tactic. Across town, Serena Klein sat in her office with her own PR team arguing about messaging. We should emphasize our commitment, PR said. We should highlight that we're reviewing processes, legal added. Do not admit automation or misrepresentation. Serena listened, jaw tight, and felt disgust rise. She spoke once, controlled. Bring me Dr. Harker, she said. There was a pause. He's a medical director, someone said. He's busy. Bring him, Serena repeated. An hour later, Dr. Andrew Harker sat across from Serena in a small conference room, looking tired in a way that wasn't physical but moral. Serena placed Marisol's denial letter in front of him. "Did you review this case?" she asked. Dr. Harker's eyes flicked over the paper. His face tightened. "No," he said quietly. Serena's throat tightened. "Then why is your name on it?" she asked. Dr. Harker exhaled, defeated. "Because the system uses my credentials," he said. "They told me it was standard, that it meant policy oversight, not case review." Serena's eyes narrowed. "Do you approve the language Dr. Review completed?" she asked. Dr. Harker hesitated. "I raised concerns," he admitted. "I was told it was legally acceptable, and the line claiming prescribing physician consultation." Serena asked. Dr. Harker flinched. "That should not be there," he said. "That implies a clinical interaction that didn't happen." Serena leaned back slowly. "So you knew it was misleading," she said. Dr. Harker met her gaze, exhausted. "I told them," he said. "I was overruled." "By whom?" Serena asked. Dr. Harker hesitated. Serena's voice sharpened. "Name them." Dr. Harker exhaled. "Utilization leadership," he said. "Legal." "And Malcolm?" Serena's stomach turned cold. She dismissed Dr. Harker and walked out of the room with her jaw clenched so tightly it hurt. She went straight to Malcolm's office. Malcolm looked up, annoyed. Serena shut the door. "Did you overrule Dr. Harker's concerns about denial language?" she asked. Malcolm leaned back, smooth. "We manage risk," he said. Serena's eyes narrowed. "You chose to misrepresent," she said. Malcolm's jaw tightened. "We chose sustainability," he corrected. Serena stared at him. "And you chose to keep patients from appealing by making them think a doctor already decided," she said. Malcolm's eyes hardened. "Appeals cost money," he said. "They clog systems. They delay care for others. We have to keep things moving." Serena's voice went cold. "You keep things moving by pushing people off the road," she said. Malcolm exhaled. "This is not the time to get righteous," he said. Serena felt Elena's hospital room flicker again. She swallowed hard. "This is exactly the time," she said. That evening, the board called Serena into an emergency meeting. They didn't call it that. They called it a strategy session. Serena arrived with a folder in her hand. The board members spoke in urgent tones about investor confidence, media cycles, regulators. They spoke about containing narrative. Serena listened, then placed the folder on the table and opened it. Inside were internal documents, denial, language templates, legal warnings, Dr. Harker's concerns, screenshots of 1-minute review times, the AutoGen-UM properties printed and circled in red. A board member's face tightened. "What is this?" he demanded. "This is what we've been doing," Serena said. Malcolm's eyes flashed. "You can't bring internal documents into this room like it's a trial," he snapped. Serena's gaze didn't flinch. "It is a trial," she said. "If not in court, then in public, and we are losing." A board member leaned forward, furious. "We are not admitting wrongdoing," he said. Serena's voice stayed calm. "We are stopping wrongdoing," she said. Immediately, another board member scoffed. "You're reacting to a reporter and a child," he said. Serena's eyes went cold. "Yes," she said, "because the child is right." The room went still at that. A board member's lips curled. "This is emotional," he said, dismissive. Serena leaned forward slightly. "No," she said. "This is operational. We remove false language. We disable auto-denials in high-risk categories until real physician review protocols are in place. We stop tying incentives to denials." Malcolm's face hardened. "That will explode costs," he warned. "Employers will leave. Premiums will spike." Serena's jaw tightened. "Then we explain the truth," she said. "We cannot keep premiums stable by lying about who reviewed care." A board member snapped. "We can adjust language without admitting automation." Serena's gaze sharpened. "If we adjust language but keep the machine, we are still harming people," she said. The board called for a closed session without Serena, citing procedure. Serena waited outside the boardroom doors, alone in a quiet hallway. Her assistant texted, "They're talking about suspending you. Security is nearby." Serena stared at the message and felt a bitter clarity. The board didn't want reform. They wanted a scapegoat or a silence. She walked back to her office. Her keycard failed at the executive elevator. A security guard approached, posture stiff, eyes avoiding hers. "Ms. Klein," he said quietly, "I'm instructed to escort you." Serena stared at him, then nodded once. "Fine," she said. It was the first visible thing she lost. Access. The illusion of ownership. In her office, the guard stood by the door like a witness. Serena opened her locked drawer and took out Elena's photo. She held it for one long breath, then placed it in her bag. Then she pulled up Marisol Reyes's denial PDF on her laptop again, clicked File, then Properties, and stared at author AutoGen-UM. She printed it and wrote on the bottom in her own hand, "This is not compliant." She drafted a disclosure letter to regulators. She attached internal documents. She signed it with her name. Legal called her twice. She let it ring. Then she hit send. The next morning, the board announced Serena Klein would temporarily step aside pending internal review. Malcolm Trent was named interim CEO. The announcement sounded clean. Serena's life did not. Her accounts were reviewed. Her access was cut. Her email was locked. Her office was cleared under supervision. She walked through the lobby carrying a box of personal items, while security watched. Cameras caught it anyway. People whispered. Serena didn't cry. She didn't plead. She moved with the controlled dignity she had always expected from others, now forced to practice it herself. Across town, Diego sat at the kitchen table and read the headline on a library computer printout Nina had brought them. Serena Klein steps aside amid utilization management scrutiny. Marisol stared at it, her mouth tight. They pushed her out. She whispered. Diego's jaw clenched. "They're changing the face," he said. "Not the machine." He pulled the receipt from his inside pocket and smoothed it on the table. The red stamp stared back. He felt the raised edge under his thumb. Denied. "Don't let them bury it," Diego said quietly. Marisol's eyes glistened. "We won't," she whispered. Nina and Carla did not turn Diego into an operator. When an insider reached out, the message went to Nina's published tip line and Carla's protected channel, not to Diego. Diego found out because Nina met them at the library again, not to summarize, but to place a single redacted page on the table. It was a training excerpt, printed with the header cut off and names blacked out. The language was clear enough, without context. Use standardized physician language to reduce escalations. Diego stared at it. Marisol's hand tightened on her cane. Nina's voice was quiet. "This is one artifact," she said. "More are coming, but this is enough to show intent." Diego didn't ask who provided it. He didn't try to contact anyone. He kept his boundary like it was life-saving equipment. That week, Marisol received another denial, this time for follow-up labs again, despite the press. The denial arrived fast. Diego printed it and placed it in the folder. He didn't call Nina. He didn't become a news manager. He took Marisol to the county clinic instead, because health didn't wait for investigations. Dr. Patel looked at the denial and her face tightened with anger. "They're denying kidney monitoring," she said. "That's irresponsible." Marisol's voice trembled. "Can you do anything?" she asked. Dr. Patel exhaled. "I can appeal," she said. "I can do peer-to-peer calls. I can document until my fingers fall off. But the system," Diego spoke quietly. "The system is the problem," he said. Dr. Patel looked at him and didn't dismiss him. "Yes," she said. "It is." Dr. Patel wrote a note on clinic letterhead. Clear and blunt. No physician consultation occurred with ClineCare regarding this denial. Statement in denial letter is false. She signed it. Diego held the paper carefully like it was fragile. He didn't crumple it. He didn't fold it. He kept it flat in the folder, because flat paper was harder to ignore. That night, Marisol's flare worsened. She woke, sweating, side pain sharp, breathing shallow. Diego sat beside her with a flashlight, checking her face for color. checking her hands for swelling, checking the cuff numbers that rose again. He didn't dramatize. He didn't panic. He called the clinic's after-hours line and described symptoms with careful precision. The nurse on call advised an ER visit if pain worsened or blood pressure climbed higher. Diego looked at Marisol, and Marisol shook her head, eyes wet with fear and shame. "We can't afford Marisol," whispered. Diego's voice was quiet but firm. "We can't afford you not breathing," he said. Marisol stared at him, then nodded slowly, defeated. They went to the ER. The waiting room smelled like disinfectant and tired bodies. Diego sat in a plastic chair beside Marisol, holding her folder of documents like it was a shield. Marisol's cane rested against her knee. Her face was pale. A triage nurse took her vitals and frowned at the blood pressure. "We'll get you back," she said, and Diego felt a small relief. Hours later, the doctor confirmed what Diego feared, a lupus flare with kidney involvement. Not catastrophic yet, but close enough to be terrifying. They gave Marisol fluids. They adjusted meds. They recommended close monitoring. When the billing coordinator visited briefly, Diego's stomach clenched. Marisol looked away, exhausted. Diego didn't beg. He simply asked, "Is there charity care?" Because it wasn't charity if it was a program designed for this. It was a right. The coordinator nodded and handed him forms. Diego took them and felt the rawness of his blister again, the physical reminder that pain came in layers. When they returned home the next morning, Marisol fell asleep on the couch immediately, face drained. Diego stood in the kitchen, staring at the folder, then pulled the denial receipt from his pocket and held it in his hand until his fingers ached. That was the moment the story refused to stay procedural, because the denial wasn't a headline. It was an ER visit. Diego emailed Nina and Carla only one thing, with Marisol beside him, watching ER visit after denial, documentation available. He didn't write details. He didn't become a hub. He handed a fact to adults who could carry it safely. Carla responded with instructions. Keep records. File continuity of care request. Request expedited review under state regulations. She attached a form. Diego printed the form and filled out the parts he could. Marisol signed with trembling hands. They submitted it. A week later, a letter arrived granting continuity of care for Marisol's medication for 12 months pending investigation. It wasn't a lifetime fix. It was a bridge. Marisol held the letter with shaking hands. 12 months, she whispered. Diego nodded once. Stability, he said quietly. Marisol exhaled, tears rising, and wiped them angrily. Not luxury, she whispered. Just stability. Diego's face stayed steady. Just stability, he echoed. Across town, Serena Klein sat in a rented office space that didn't smell like polished wood. Her name wasn't on any glass door. Her phone was full of voicemails from lawyers and board members. Her calendar was full of meetings with regulators and counsel. She had not won. She had not been forgiven. She had been removed. And still, she worked. She met with Carla Mendez to understand how whistleblower protections could be formalized, not as a PR statement, but as enforceable policy. Carla didn't flatter Serena. Carla treated her like a powerful adult who had caused harm. Serena accepted it. Carla laid out requirements: independent counsel reporting to an oversight committee, anti-retaliation enforcement mechanisms, documentation protocols, separation from management influence. Serena listened and took notes like she was no longer the smartest person in the room. When Serena tried to propose a voluntary improvement plan, Carla's eyes narrowed. Voluntary plans vanish, Carla said. We need binding commitments. Serena nodded. Then binding, she said. Regulators moved slowly, but they moved. Kleincare, under Malcolm, tried to soften everything. They removed a few phrases. They offered courtesy approvals. They tried to settle with minimal admissions. Serena made it harder. She provided documents. She testified when asked. She refused a private settlement offer that came with a confidentiality clause, even though it would have protected her financially. Her lawyer warned her. You will lose money, he said. You will lose reputation. You will lose friends. Serena's voice was quiet. I already lost my sister, she said. I'm not losing my spine. That didn't fix her. It didn't cleanse her. It simply made her choices real. Then the major twist surfaced with something concrete enough to hold. Nina placed a redacted training binder excerpt on the library table in front of Diego and Marisol. She didn't summarize it as rumor. She showed it. The excerpt included a section titled, Member Escalation Management. It stated, use physician language to reduce appeals. Maintain consistent messaging. It included a boxed note. High-friction members require additional documentation thresholds. The words were plain and chilling. Nina's voice was controlled. This suggests the system may treat people who appeal as friction, she said. I'm not saying retaliation as a fact. I'm saying the design appears intended to discourage persistence. Marisol's face went pale. They flagged us, she whispered. Diego's jaw clenched. He touched the receipt in his pocket. The paper felt thinner than it should for how heavy it was. Nina watched Diego carefully. This is not for you to carry, she said. Diego's voice was quiet, steady. I'm not carrying, he said. I'm pointing. He slid the receipt onto the table beside the excerpt, and the red stamp looked like it belonged there. Evidence meeting intent. That night, Diego lay awake listening to the laundromat machines thump below, like distant drums. He thought about the phrase, high friction, applied to people whose bodies were failing. He thought about how the machine might have been learning them, the way a predator learns a trail. He didn't cry. Crying didn't change the stamp. He made a list in his notebook of what mattered most now. Keep Marisol stable. Keep school. Keep boundaries. Keep proof. In the morning, he went to school and turned in his homework on time. He ate his lunch even when his stomach resisted. He forced normalcy, like it was medicine too. A month later, the restitution program was announced publicly as part of an enforcement action framework, still not a final settlement. Not a neat bow, but a concrete consequence. Diego didn't watch the press conference. He was at Mr. Han's store, repainting the back room for cash. His new shoes still not bought. His old blister finally healed into tough skin. Mr. Han handed him a paint roller and said, slow, no drip. Diego nodded. I know, he said, and worked. When he got home, Marisol held a letter in her hands, trembling. It was from Kleincare's continuity of care unit, confirming the 12-month coverage again, and acknowledging the ER visit documentation. Marisol's eyes were wet. They put it in writing, she whispered. Diego nodded. Good, he said. Paper matters. Then another packet arrived weeks later from the restitution administrator, an independent third party, not Kleincare's glossy PR arm. The packet listed reimbursements eligible for Marisol, out-of-pocket pharmacy costs, transportation, lost wages during flare weeks, and related costs not covered. Diego read it carefully, suspicious by habit. Marisol watched his face. What does it say? She asked. It says they owe, Diego said simply. Marisol exhaled shakily, relief and anger mixed. Then Diego saw a second letter in the packet, a scholarship offer for Diego, resilience scholarship, technology stipend, mentorship opportunity. Diego's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. Marisol saw his face and reached for the letter. Her hands trembled. She read it and swallowed hard. It could help, she whispered. Practical, exhausted, a laptop, college someday. Diego shook his head slowly. It's not stability, he said. It's luxury with strings. And it makes it look like we did this for prizes. Marisol's eyes glistened. You deserve good things, she whispered. Diego's voice stayed steady. I deserve to be safe, he said, and to go to school, and for you to have your medication without begging. Marisol nodded, tears slipping despite her anger at them. Diego opened the laptop and wrote a response email with careful, respectful language. He thanked the administrator for the restitution review and agreed to cooperate fully, because reimbursement restored stability and addressed harm. He declined the scholarship and mentorship, stating clearly they would not accept personal benefit beyond what corrected documented damage. He requested confirmation that the scholarship offer would be redirected into the General Restitution Fund, or a broader program without being tied to their names. He typed the words, then looked at Marisol. Okay? He asked, because boundaries applied even at home. Marisol nodded, voice shaking. Okay, she whispered. Send. Diego hit send. A week later, the check arrived. It didn't transform their life into a different class. It didn't move them out of the apartment. It didn't erase lupus. It paid overdue utility bills that had been hovering like threats. It fixed the leaky sink that had been patched with tape. It replaced the broken smoke detector. It covered bus fares and clinic copays. Marisol insisted they put a small amount into savings, a real emergency buffer, small but present. Diego bought shoes that fit, chosen on sale, practical and sturdy. He didn't feel guilty, because shoes weren't luxury. Shoes were function. His feet stopped hurting in a way that made him realize how much pain he had been ignoring. Marisol still had bad days. Some mornings, she still needed the cane. Some days she still couldn't stand long enough to cook. Some nights she still woke sweating, side aching, and Diego still listened for her breathing to settle. But the edge of freefall dulled into something closer to balance. Diego returned to school fully. He still worked small jobs, because stability required maintenance. But now his mind wasn't trapped in constant emergency math. He completed assignments on time again. He ate lunch more often. He sat in class without his stomach twisting every time his phone buzzed. Ms. Lang noticed and didn't ask for details. She simply said, "Good to see you," like Diego had always belonged there. One afternoon, after school, Diego walked past the Kleincare building downtown. A new banner hung in the lobby, Independent Review, ongoing, patient care first. Diego stopped and stared at it. He didn't believe banners. He believed enforcement. Still, he felt something shift, subtle, grounded. Not trust, exactly. Recognition that the machine had been forced to change its gears, at least for now, under pressure strong enough to leave marks. He kept walking. At home, Marisol stood at the window when he came in. She looked stronger than she had months ago, though still fragile. She wore the same old cardigan, sleeves pushed up, hair braided. "How was school?" she asked. "Good," Diego said, and meant it. Marisol's eyes softened. "Good," she echoed. Diego set his backpack down and went to the kitchen. He washed his hands and began chopping vegetables for dinner without being asked. The knife was dull, but his movements were precise. Marisol watched him for a moment. "You said no to the scholarship," she said quietly. Diego didn't look up. "It wasn't for me," he said. Marisol's voice trembled. "You deserved help," she whispered. Diego paused, knife hovering. He looked at her, eyes steady. "I deserve to be a kid," he said simply. "Not their example." Marisol's eyes filled, and she wiped them quickly, irritated with her own tears. "Yes," she whispered. "You do." Diego returned to chopping, shoulders loosening slightly. In a smaller office across town, Serena Klein sat at a plain desk that didn't smell like polished wood. Her calendar was full of hearings and filings and meetings with regulators and advocates. She no longer had the comfort of dashboards that only told her what she wanted to hear. Her name was no longer on glass doors. Her wealth was smaller. Her reputation was fractured. Her redemption was not warm. It was heavy, paid in lawsuits, and lost power, and public humiliation, and the slow work of helping build guardrails around a machine she had once praised. On her desk sat a denial receipt beneath a heavy glass paperweight, an anonymized copy, stripped of identifiers, kept not as a trophy but as a reminder. The stamp faced up, denied. Serena looked at it before every call, not as a symbol of guilt. Guilt could become self-indulgent, but as a reminder of what her rationalizations had done. Sustainability, noise, compliant. All the words that had helped her sleep while someone else sat in an ER waiting room. The paper didn't let her forget. Diego did not visit Serena. Diego did not thank Serena. Diego did not become a photo op. He became what he had insisted on being all along. A kid with dignity, boundaries, and a future built from discipline. On the last day of school before summer break, kids chattered about camps and trips. Diego had no camp. He had Mr. Han's store back room to repaint. He had laundry shifts. He had chores. He didn't mind. Work was honest. Stability was not glamorous. It was earned again and again. He walked home under warm sunlight, the city loud around him. He climbed the flickering stairwell carefully, because Marisol's cane tapped slower now, and he didn't want to startle her. Inside the apartment, Marisol stood at the window when he came in. She looked tired, but steady. Her lupus still lived in her body like a shadow that didn't leave, but it wasn't sprinting unchecked anymore. Diego crossed the room and hung his windbreaker on the chair. The inside pocket sagged slightly with paper. He reached in, pulled out the receipt, and unfolded it once more. Denied. It was old now, creased, softened by his thumb, the ink slightly faded at the edges from being handled so many times. He didn't throw it away. He didn't frame it. He folded it along the same creases, slow and deliberate, and slid it back into the inside pocket, where it pressed against his ribs, like proof. Denied had once been a verdict. Now it was a metronome, a reminder of what had been forced to change and what still needed watching. Diego zipped the jacket closed, sat at the table, and opened his school notebook to a clean page. Because tomorrow still mattered, and he intended to be 11.